Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and this is a celebration of many things. Basically, I have my Mercury return, which is the ruler of my 7th and 4th. So good times, but a couple of things happened today. First of all, I was called to look again at the chart of somebody that you might not know by the Israeli name, but he was a nuclear whistleblower. You might know him by the name of John Crossman, and the Israeli name is Mordechai Vanunu. And this was an old story where he used to work for the nuclear factory in Dimona in Israel, and he whistleblowed the nuclear plan for Israel because he wanted to denucleify the region. Now, as some of you may know, I'm one of the people who is working on very holistic level denuclification plans, and so for me it is amazing. I think denuclification should be done with removing the cause for why we have this. And some of the things you might look at is what does the cosmos benefit from nuclear explosions? It's very simple. If you look at Chernobyl, 70 years, no human hand touching the soil, forests grow, extinct species grow. So forestation, okay, going from let's say desert places to forestation is one of the best denuclificators that we have. And things to do with tending, let's say, to the children that don't receive like the attention, or they are more difficult for people to deal with, or and those that get kind of like missing, yes, because they actually go missing, and those are the people that are getting recruited. And when there's not enough from them, then of course you see wars. So I was looking at Vanunu's chart, and the first thing that kind of came up to me was like, oh my God, this is Jupiter-Uranus, and he has a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. I can't show the chart right now because I need to but if you want the chart, it's basically either the 14th or the 13th of October 1954. Okay, he changed his birth year to 1952 because he was undercover, but the original year is 1954. And this is 14 October. We don't have ascendant, yes. So the first thing that struck me about the chart was the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and for him this conjunction was in 27-28 Cancer. What is the closest fixed star? Of course, Procyon. I don't have ascendant. Israel's midheaven is on Procyon. Is very likely to have a nuclear whistleblower that is Israeli, because Israel is with midheaven Procyon. Okay, the natal chart of Israel is midheaven Procyon. So if you're looking for these guys, the people who are doing nukes within Israel, we must have whistleblowers within them, because Procyon is about denuclification mundanely, and this is one of the things that I'm speaking about. I'm not saying others don't, but I just didn't hear other people talk about Procyon as specifically for denuclification projects. It's also the planet that was conjuncting Nelson Mandela's son, where he abolished apartheid, not by what you see here today, rape and weird stuff, but actually looking into what needs to change within society. And this is also the way to denucleify. What needs to change within society, and making those changes. So abolishing bloodline segregation as much as possible, and even marrying someone from another tribe. Okay, you fell in love. It's not necessarily they planned this, but also taking from the others what is good. Okay, yes, taking the education, learning, getting to know another culture, but also changing what is not good. Okay, if apartheid essentially is bloodline segregation, then if you have bloodline segregation within your tribes, this is where you want to this is a point of interference where if you change that, then it's less and less possible to be oppressive towards you using bloodline segregation. Okay? And it's not shame and blame. It's not shame and blame for no. Okay? The black women in Africa were not guilty in the fact that they were double time oppressed and so on. But when it comes to nukes, then clearly we can see if you have 70 years of no human hand touches the soil, it grows forests, it grows extinct species. So what we're up against is how do we grow a forest in a way that's more effective than nuke? You say, Shirley, this is crazy. No, because what is used for the nuke is many things. One of them is a byproduct of the Industrial Revolution, okay? And so, of course, for Industrial Revolution, it's this cell phone that I'm, it's this cell phone, but it's also this book, okay? And it's also this glass, okay, to be able to manufacture it so that nobody will have to have a decades-long fight with anyone over a glass that broke. This is the Industrial Revolution. Okay, it's not bad things, but the byproduct of the Industrial Revolution was many things. One of them is fluoride, and for the making of the A-bomb, fluoride was needed. It was good, and so I talked about if you see defluoridization of the water, wherever you see that in the world, and you see the government is doing this, it's used for something now. So this definitely is an issue that we need to tackle. One of the ways, if we think about reduction of the concentration, is basically growing forests. And so the nuke itself, okay, the A-bomb itself, what it does is that for 70 years or so, for 7 decades or so, you can't touch this land and do anything on it because it has radiation. So basically the A-bomb is kind of fixing the lack of balance that we created with the Industrial Revolution. Okay? The fact that we know this is a point of interference, that we can mitigate things. Basically, if we want to denucleify, we need to grow these forests better than if they would grow with an A-bomb, because nature is economic, okay? So if we're not doing it good enough, we will throw an A-bomb, and then that's what's up. Now, so when do we throw an A-bomb? When people are not valuing life anymore because they're suffering so much, like the kamikazes. And so when people are in such suffering that they already wish death, then nuke for many of them is more effective way, but they have to be in the margins of the nuke. That being said, if we want to denucleify, we can basically move the soil around and grow forests. You can check these projects. They've been done in the Sahara Desert, where people are building kind of like a half moon and digging it into the ground, and then it saves the water, the little water that grow, and the soil becomes fertile again and it begins to grow forests. Even if you don't bring a single drop of water or plant anything, you just move the soil around, you create these half moons that are dug into the ground, and what happens is that the little water that comes in, it drops in and it stays there, and then the soil becomes fertile again, able to absorb water again, and it did it in the Sahara, okay? So if we have these projects, then we are balancing the earth in a way that doesn't necessitate dropping a nuke, okay? What about the fluoride? I need to check this myself. I tried to look for information, but I know that the information will come to me. So this celebration today is, of course, giving reverence to Mordechai Vanunu, who spent 18 years in jail. 18 years is the cycle from 1988 to 2004, okay? It's the cycle of eclipses that came before us, okay? It's the cycle of eclipses that we had the nodes. I think we are embarking right now with this cycle of eclipses at where the nodes were. So it was towards the end of the eclipse cycle in Libra Aries 1988, and then 18 years later he was released. So 2004, yes, 18 years. He was released, so 1988, and he was released only in 2004. Actually, calculation, not right now. So that's the first thing I paid attention to. And he has a Mars, a very exalted 25 degrees Capricorn Mars, okay? Exalted Mars that rules over a stellium in Scorpio. And this Mars is opposition Jupiter-Uranus, okay? So Jupiter-Uranus is making everything big, ideology as well, religion as well. Uranus is about rebellion, but also technology and innovation on a mass scale, on a nervous system level scale. And the conjoining, we'll have a Jupiter-Uranus conjoining actually this May, but already this April it begins to perfect. And this is the conjunction that we have in Taurus in 21 and 22 degrees. And, you know, it's kind of interesting who will be the people. There are all kinds of Jupiter-Uranus people, but he had a Jupiter-Uranus with a Mars opposing on a 25 degree Capricorn. So very strong Mars opposing the Jupiter-Uranus. What it gives us, I call it the martial art of whistleblowers. Okay? I don't think you understand what it means to be a nuclear whistleblower. I don't even begin to get it myself. There's all types of whistleblowing projects. Whistleblower for nukes is kind of like, if you get not the Epstein, but the entire structure of the Peter rings down, okay, that is the equivalent of being a nuclear whistleblower, okay? This is big. This is something that's kind of like, if I see, you know, a Mars-Saturn opposition, Mars-Saturn had aspect for like martial artists, this is the martial artists of whistleblowers. This is, wow. And it's kind of like, it's over the top. It's a very aggressive energy. It's not easy to control, and he used this. We know that Israel has nuke because of him, probably. Not just because of him, it was like this textile factory and so on, yes, but has a nuclear program, whatever. It's like, I'm a citizen, it's like, I don't know, I don't have any insider knowledge, just read these things. But the thing is that his idea was to denucleify the region. So he wanted to leak the information so that we get eventually to denuclification process. Again, Israel has Procyon on the midheaven. It is, you know, I don't know what will be if they're like, what are they planning to do here? But you want to keep that Procyon on, either ascendant, the midheaven, the sun. You want that Procyon. You want that Procyon. When you apply to this Procyon, the things that happen, oh my God, okay? Like Mandela spent 28 years, was his entire Saturn cycle. He spent 80 years, which was an entire Rahu cycle, the entire eclipse cycle for where Rahu is returning to the same point is 18 years. So yes, he did the jail time, he did the full sentence, okay? So that was not, you know, sentence for 18 years, he did the full sentence. So it's kind of like, it's not, but let's talk about the Scorpio stellium. So he has Mercury, Venus, Black Moon Lilith, and I don't remember, in Saturn in Scorpio, the Saturn 9 degrees Scorpio, and Venus and Mercury towards the end phase of Scorpio, okay? None of them fortunately on a little degree. And his moon is in Taurus. We don't know the degree because we don't know the day, okay? So, but his moon is for sure in Taurus because it's found either, if it is in the 14th, then it's kind of like the middle phase of Taurus. That would mean that if it's in the 13th, it's very likely to be still in Taurus, but the first phase. So what it did with this exalted Taurus moon there, and I tend to believe that this moon is around this 16 degrees, 15 degrees Taurus, kind of the middle phase, because I looked at this chart today, and there's always kind of like a reason. This moon is opposing the entire stellium. So it's opposing Saturn, it's opposing Venus, it's opposing Mercury in Scorpio. What it did with this exalted Taurus moon, and Taurus moon, you know, I like to link to talismans, because talismans, they capture the entity of, or the being, or the energy of certain yoga or constellation. And the recent writings on Moon Jupiter in Taurus by Sphere and Sundry, they really encapsulate kind of like the exalted Taurus moon, where you can have the resilience. You basically, it's not about resilience. The Taurus moon is about comfort, okay? Smoothness. Having a moon with Saturn opposition is a really hard aspect, because Saturn contracts and the moon is where you want to be safe, you want to be comfortable. But what he did with his Taurus moon is taking the baseline of his ability to have this kind of like baseline for his nervous system that can compound the Mars opposing Jupiter around us, which is very excitatory for the nervous system, and the opposition to very intense stellium. And Scorpio is ruled by this, very much controlled, because this Mars Saturn, this Mars Capricorn, very exalted Mars, and he just took the baseline, which is what he had, is the moon in Taurus, and he milked every drop of resilience to do what he did, okay? So this is just, you know, just giving reverence to one of the greatest whistleblowers we've had in modern times, that did the full sentence. And it's also kind of a reminder that the project of denuclification doesn't have to be a far-fetched fantasy, okay? But it's actually where it's going. And there are things that are linked to that every person can do, even in the backyard, okay? You have desert land, grow these forests, you grow life basically, okay? Then that's one thing that some people can do. But the more we basically go into ourselves and what we do want, and allow what we don't want to disintegrate, then we have more time and more leverage to tend to things. And when you tend to something, even if it's small scale, if it's like setting intention, you begin to draw the path, you begin to draw the answers. We need to understand why something happens, what does it serve in the system if we want to change it. So nuclear weapon is using the byproduct of the industrialized revolution to grow forests, basically. Nukes grow forests, okay? It's a nuclear disaster, but the compound effect of 70 years with no human hand touching it is basically balancing out the effects of the Industrial Revolution. Of course, we want technology. Of course, the Industrial Revolution is a part of our telos, but it doesn't have to be doom and gloom. Now that we have a more kind of like holistic picture of kind of like a century or 3 centuries since the last kind of like scientific revolution. And now that we touch on scientific revolution, there's another throwback that was happening actually yesterday on March 27th. And that was a long-term study in people who are using beta blockers, antipsychotics, that are also given for cancer patients to reduce the nausea. And I'm a great activist in letting people know that there are medications that can do complete remission of cancer from terminally ill people, because your line of experimentation is only the terminally ill people mostly. Okay, it's the terminally ill, it's the completely verrückt, okay, completely crazy, and heart attacks. Yes, because you know it's kind of like, hey, this person's gonna die without it, so let's try this. And these are the frontiers of science. And so these beta blockers or antipsychotics are given to cancer patients and to people with heart condition. I can't stress how horrid it is, because what it does is it makes not autonomic muscles, which basically means that muscles that we don't consciously contract, not contract. So autonomic muscles, famous autonomic muscles we have, you know, the kidneys, the intestines, the heart, and the brain. This is why they give it to people who they said are cuckoo, because they said, oh, there'll be less cuckoo, okay? And they saw that over long term, the people who stopped taking these antidepressants, these antipsychotics, these beta blockers, actually were more functioning in society. And like, if you want to live, if first of all, if you don't want to live, advocate for sacropods or something, because this is not a solution. Like, this is not a viable assisted suicide solution. It's just not the death experience that you desire, okay? And everybody deserves death with dignity. And if you want to live, that's not something that assists in that, okay? And so this is one of the great wins. One of the great wins, because people have been trying. So many people died, or not just the people that were given beta blockers, the families, the people that tried to expose, the whistleblowers, everybody that talked about the side effect, and everybody was saying, you know, well, it is terrible, but there is no choice, but there is no this, but there is no that. This is, you know, light a candle at this moment for every single person that's no longer with us, because they at least tried, that, you know, the many people that are now dealing with trauma and stuff like that would not be assassinated by these drugs, okay? And this is such a big moment. This is such a big moment, especially now, because so many people are going to be at the hands of those systems, and it really is a gift to have this knowledge. Before enlightenment, listen to the patient. After enlightenment, listen to the patient. It's true that it's always more complicated. Yes, of course. But those things are, I don't think you understand how many voices, how many actions, how many dreams, how many people are behind. I don't think I even understand, are behind each and every line that's been said in this video. And most of them will never know. Okay? So this is a big V moment, okay? Parking the Vanunu V moment. And this is not a V from Vendetta. It's a V for a victory of the light on that which is fear story, that which is essentially all these controls, these fears, okay? The stories that people that have the story of there isn't enough, or the stories of people that have the story of yes, there is enough, yes, we can do this, and that's the victory. It's kind of like, for those who are like the spiritual, the Archangel Michael victory, and this is, it's not big, it's huge, and it has the power. All of these things have the power to simply avert anything that was planned that was not by the story of a vision of life. And this is a video that I know I will, and probably you can too, come back to over and over again. We're gonna need this reminder. And I had a very good friend in university that for one of my birthdays, she wrote me a big, it's kind of like a note with sayings. And one of the sayings that she quoted was, you know, if you think about quitting, remember why you started. So I'm gonna put this video here as a reminder that whatever you're doing in life, whatever is your dream, whatever is your vision, and I want you to keep this in mind, that all the big problems, the huge problems, those problems that everybody's like, this is a conundrum, okay? Even these problems are solved, and they're solved naturally. So I want you to also remember that every day, every single problem you have, 99% of the problems you have in your life are completely solved before you even know there are problems. You just think about your body. You just think about your well-being. You just think about everything that's going right. You know, when I learned holistic medicine, then I learned, and I'm not a big, you know, that I just learned several courses that allow me to treat people. A part of what we learn is kind of like, look at everything that's going right. Okay, you wake up in the morning, so many processes in the body are just going right for this very moment for you to be alive. Okay, the problem solving, the healing capacity, the powers of a restoration of nature, and we are just a part of nature, are so enormous. And I want you to keep that in mind, that whatever you're dealing with right now, all your problems have a solution. All your problems have a solution. And I know I can this a reminder for myself. So, and this is a great, you know, this is a lunar night here. I don't know the hour in terms like astrology, but this is a tremendous night. And yes, it's not that people are not dealing with things. I also want you to know another thing. And so I've been around the capital city of the south of Israel, Beersheba, okay? And they have this, if you go around Beersheba, you see either US marking, you see Ultra South, and it's separately you see MK, so MK Ultra, like they're literally writing MK Ultra. I want you to Google MK Ultra. And you see huge drawings of penis for like the 7th of October. They're planning to do something. So, and what is MK Ultra about? MK Ultra is basically kind of like psychic interference, basically causing people to have what they get diagnosed as psychosis. And what you need is people that went through psychic attacks and found ways, or went or diagnosed with psychosis and found ways that are not drugs to combat that. So what you basically need is to speak with people who were diagnosed as psychotic and or went through psychic attack. It's kind of like, it's the same thing. They got the way out. They got the way out. So one of the stories I heard was a person was envisioning a blue light going through the body and kind of like focusing on like, I see truth, or the blue light of truth is filling me. And he would do this every day, and that would keep him off of like psychotic stuff. Another thing is to understand that you are not imagining. Perhaps the analogy that you're receiving is not one by one, but in essence you are receiving information. You are receiving valid information, okay? Also to keep in mind what we call psyops, that Yeah, if a channeling is when a clear voice, a loving voice, truth, truth is not, I'm here excited, yes, but truth is not about giving you the fear story. Truth is not about threatening you. Truth is not going to try to make you to lose your freedom or give your freedom up. None of that is truth. None of that is in the light of love, in the light of truth. Okay? Just none of that. So what's not that is not channeling. Okay, it can be telepathy of somebody who's concerned. It can be a psy-op. Okay, so it's like intending to send that to you. It can be many things. But this is something that is useful for you to know. Astrologically, so then if Algety is associated with kind of like psychic protection, Algol also from like a lot of stuff, Andromeda for reconciliation, but also tend to Andromeda also. Oh well, I need to work with Andromeda a little more to tell you this. And ask the big questions. And so if you have a question like, what can I do? Okay, say I'm tending to it. And so ask for the solution, what the steps that you can do, that are feasible for you to do. And you will get ideas. It's just like, it's the process of creative thinking. Okay? So those things are useful, and again, why does something become like a pandemic? Because there were many people that were going through these things, and people consider them to be crazy, to be imagining, to be going through like a conspiracy theory if they spoke up, because it was so far-fetched from our reality, because we are not informed about scientific processes, and what seems to us like science fiction is science for a long time ago, and what seems to us is science, it was existing so long ago. Just on aviation, so Concorde. I get a first Concorde flight, which is a plane that goes kind of like, it has a little bit of a supersonic, but it goes beyond the speed of sound. And this is why you can travel for like 2.5 hours, where you could need, 10 hours or 8 hours to travel. And the first Concorde flight, I think it was now the 1960s. Okay, every now and again they kind of, the 3D movies that you see, okay, 3D movies, they are since like the very beginning of cinematography. Okay. So kind of you see the 3D commercials of China, the beautiful things, okay? So these visions are being pulled out every time there's a world war, they want to divert your opinion. But also, there's just a lot more science going on. The fact that what you're marketed is not going to be medicine always doesn't mean that there isn't medical science. There is. What you would think to be miracles, there is. But there is also medical warfare. And since those two mingle, we kind of need to grow our own information and discernment around this. So MK Ultra like things, or messing with people's psyche and stuff like that, is just science. So about almost a decade and a half ago, I was sitting with a good friend who was dating somebody. Yet another, Israel is high-tech, I think it's a real thing. It's a small country. Everybody has an exit. Everybody has an idea. And I'm the type of person that loves ideas and loves it. So you would get to hear this. And they were working on something that you could read thoughts. And so we already have the ability to do that, and they were just refining some stuff. So of course you can communicate with people who are, let's say, are not able to move their bodies, and kind of like communicate and read their thoughts and have established communication. Usually the stories for these inventions go to like somebody who cannot speak, who has a certain disability, and then they develop the technology to connect with that someone. Okay, the application for that is the incarnation test is kind of like, oh well, if it's it's useful for other things too. So just so that you understand that this is just technology and science that exists. And also, to set your boundaries in those realms is technology and science that exists. Who should you turn to? The people that's been dealing with this. Who's been dealing with this? The people that are either whistleblowers, went through certain type of violence that exposed them to some. Sometimes the person who went through, I'm a Me Too veteran. So when I went through the Me Too veteranship, the Me Too case, I was like, okay, I need to heal myself. I wrote a satire because I need a means of expression. I didn't understand what I was on to. Okay? It was not even the person who violated my boundaries and so on. So it was not even this. It was like the root of how psyop is done. Because I was like, no, what's like? It's not just like okay, so he did that was a sexual harassment. Okay, fine. It's not fine. But how would he even be getting into the situation of to do that? That's psyop. And I'm like, it's that. Now, how do you talk about that? Okay. And I had a lot of crazy ideas. Okay. So, Aries was conjunct in Uranus on my Mercury. Then it's like, yeah, of course, I would come up with ideas. But the thing is that the people who let's say, I know that there's the story of Ruth Shoami in Israel is becoming slowly famous. She had 2 children. The classical case, the father was courting the children and her. She divorced, she got the children out. And then the father wanted to get the children back, so they tried to make her the crazy. 7 times there was psychiatrist. This is divinatory or something, either cosmic or something, because usually psychiatrists are not as smart. But 7 times they did not find anything wrong with her. And the fact is that her husband happened to be someone Jewish Orthodox and higher up the rank of some sort of organizations. This exposed the fund that is basically electing, giving the grants to people in academia, in the army, in the parliament, and picking the people and the way that children are being used as trust God. And this poor mother is just trying to get her children back so that they will not be violated by their father. That's all. Now she's a whistleblower that she has to expose the entire chain of events. And also tied out to a friend of mine who was a Me Too veteran in Haifa. And there was a figure there that was involved in that one too. And it's those kind of things. Okay, so the people that you see, where would you see them if they're not in jail or dead? You would see them in hospitals. You would see them as a person have a diagnosis. You would see them in hostels. Okay, these are the people that are being swayed from the discourse. It's the people that won't be able to keep a job, to get a steady job and keep a job, that won't be able to mingle in society usually to the best of you might see them on the street if you run into them in the street. So this is exactly what's on. Okay, it's tending to those who are not included in society, and every person to the best of their abilities. Like we're not, I'm not, a real, how do you say it? A person, a charming person, full of. There's a difference between the charisma of a public person and the charisma of person to person, or the ability to create connections and preserve connections and stuff like that. I'm not a genius in that, but to the best of the ability, when we can do that, you're gonna get a lot of good stuff. You're gonna get a lot of good stuff, a lot of appraisal, and also great sense of scientific discovery, because sometimes we are at the times where that person that tells you things, you're like, where are they coming from? 10 years later, you're like, literally everything that they said was right. They weren't even making analogies. I remember I spoke with someone and they said, they're trying to cancel the sexual polarity and they're using LGBTQ for that, but he was not pro LGBTQs. So I was like, okay, he has a bias about LGBTQ. No, they're trying to cancel the sexual polarity. and they use LGBTQ as a card, okay, because they're not actually pro-LGBTQ. They're just pro canceling the sexual polarity because they want to cancel fertility, because they want to control birthing and death, and stuff like that, and people kind of like becoming more androgynous. And again, there's nothing wrong about being androgynous. Sometimes you have an even more satisfactory life experience, but there is something about canceling the sexual polarity where it does exist naturally, and play with that so that less and less people will be able to have children, like in a natural process. So hey, it was that person that was, you know, the introduction was like, hey, you look 200 years old. I was like, thank you. It was like, no, you're a young soul. Okay, whatever that means. And they would speak to you in this dimension, that dimension, that dimension. I remember I asked them if the antipsychotics that they were receiving is like, it helps them to get grounded. You say a little, but then I go up again, and then they ran into the trauma, which I will not tell you, but it includes medicine, includes medical personnel, and again, you know, you somewhere along that line of the story is true. And once they get validation, they can really begin to release the stuff. They can begin to ground themselves. But it also goes through the solution to the problems of why they're not grounded. And if a person has been targeted as a child for like expendable children stuff, then they have to abolish expendable children. This is the problem. Then they will be able to be grounded. But it goes together, okay? Just like you go into that, then you're more grounded. You go into that, and you're more grounded, and so on and so forth. So for some of you, this is the case. And it's always a reminder to at least tend to the fact that not everything has to go like by the rules, straight line, and so on. You know, kind of like there are the stories of the Second World War. That kind of like the genocides that were there, the atrocities were there. Like everybody was going by the book, the straight line, obeying orders. Not everybody has to do this, and to have the individuation and the process. Like yes, you can make mistakes, but the freedom to experiment, the freedom to say yes, no, and maybe according to what is authentic to you, is important for sexual satisfaction, for intimate relationships, for international relationships, and for living, making sometimes life more difficult because it's more difficult. It's challenging establishing an agreement, but the agreement is more authentic. And when agreements are not authentic, you usually get world wars. Okay. This is whether in relationships, this is like somebody was compromising a part of themselves, and you know, and we're purging that. So yeah, this is important to know, because within all of these things that you see, and you do see more people becoming traumatic, more people going through like psychosis, more people going through medical warfare. Within those things, there are also these things. Okay, that the fact that we have a paper that says long term it's better to not take these antipsychotics. We got this, black and white, scientific, peer review approved paper that says that's what's up. Okay. Not only the people that used these things and nearly died or died were the building blocks, but also the people who understood what's up and wanted to expose the real data about the research. If you remember the class lawsuits against olanzapine, class lawsuits upon class lawsuits upon class lawsuits, and still these drugs were being used by the excuse that it would be even worse off if so and so. Open dialogue for years in Finland, a little bit in Natal, I don't know. I mean, I know it was born also in Netherlands. I don't know if it actually practiced in Netherlands. You have to have housing first for these cases. I will do a lot more videos about nervous system compatible housing and, you know, denuclification and deforestation and whatnot. But the thing is that just so many people that kind of like, hey, this is not science, this is not actually working, this is actually killing people, this could be used as warfare, this is assassination of people, and it's not an experiment. You talk about medical experiment in people. Experiment is when you don't know what the result is. Okay, this is not the case for several decades. So we got the paper. Miss Revenge is your paper. This is the paper. We got the paper. And that is beyond huge. So next up, what I predict to be for Pluto Capricorn kind of last visit is abolishing expendable children. Once we got that, we have major piece of denuclification. We have major challenge to denuclification off the road. And we also have the neutralization of guerrilla wars, which are the reason that we would eventually throw out the A-bomb. So I predict that to be kind of like between September and November 2024. And meanwhile, you know, work that soil. So yeah, some good news for the April 8th eclipse. This thing happened too. Bye-bye.